with Beard!
Hey, podcast kittens, it's Cathy Cat and...
Ladybeard, welcome to another exciting installment of Cat with Beard! Yes! Yes, ladies and gentlemen, yes! We are here today in the best viewed radio studio in Tokyo. This is it!
I think we're alienating our guests. We have some guests here as well.
Please welcome
to the
Nano and
studio.
Brandon. Yes!
Brandon!
Yes!
Please give us a quick introduction of yourself.
Nano, go for it.
I think I might be deaf in my left ear.
That's her name, her artist name. I think I might be deaf in my left ear.
The artist formerly known as Nano.
No. Yeah, but this is so great to be here. My name is Nano. I am a bilingual singer in Japan. I do anime songs, J-pop, J-rock, what have you. I'm just a rock and roller at heart, and I'm so happy to be here with you guys.
Excellent. We're happy you're here. Thank you for coming. Stuff. And yourself, sir?
Thank guys. My name is Brandon. I am the general manager at a company called Ladybeard here in Tokyo. Basically, I do contents planning, contents production. I work on anime production committees. I formerly worked at the voice actor and talent management agency, Horipro International. Basically, I was like a voice actor manager, musical artist manager, and so on. But for a guy with a face like this one, it's quite rare for someone to say, I managed voice actors or I managed musical artists. So I hope I'll be able to talk to you guys a little bit about that kind of rare history.
In Japan,
In
guys,
Japan.
in Japan.
Coming in today, so.
100%.
But thanks so much for having us.
No, thank you, Hess. With that resume, it sounds like you're going to say, I actually owned the building, or is it your ears because of me, and I run this whole thing.
This
That's
building.
The goal, is the goal.
You have a very nice haircut, Brandon.
I appreciate it.
First thing
No,
I've noticed.
I said when we came in today, like, you mentioned such a nice haircut, and I'm always, like, wondering for like tips on like how to do this, because this isn't me. Like, I don't normally go in front of cameras. I don't normally do this kind of stuff. I'm mostly behind the scenes person, but
You've
I
scrubbed
think-
up very well.
Yeah.
no, I appreciate
No,
it.
but he said that
No.
it's his first time being on this side of the
No, that's
screen
right.
for the radio, so
Because
it's
like
a really special moment for
this
him
camera right
today.
here, like you guys can't see it, but in the booth on the other side over here, where
On
like
the YouTube channel, you'll also be able to see.
yeah, the booth on this side over here where the engineer sits, right? I, as a former artist manager, would normally be on that side of the window looking in,
So it's
looking
debut.
ominous, right? But on this side, at Bunka Hoso, here we are today. This is the first time.
How does it feel like to be on this side of the screen? Does it feel any different?
Special, like I'm actually an artist, which I am absolutely not. Like not like you
Oh,
guys.
yes,
so it's
you
an
are.
honor-
Come on. You're an
honor
artist
and a
at
privilege. An
heart.
honor and a privilege. I
Exactly.
appreciate it.
Quickly explaining why we both have you in a set.
Please.
You guys have a podcast together.
Yes, we do.
So we're actually splitting today's podcast into two parts. One
Yep.
part is going to be here on Cat with Beard, and then the second part, Lada's going to go over to your podcast,
Yep,
which is
absolutely.
called...
Nano to the world.
Yes!
Yay!
Round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. This is fantastic. Nano
So Cat
to the
with Beard
world.
from Japan and Nano to the world
Yes!
are collaborating today on this wonderful podcast day. Ladies and gentlemen, it is happening, and it is happening now, right now.
Moment in history. This is incredible.
So... Nano, wow. I heard you've worked on a lot of amazing projects and a lot of songs for anime, so can you show some off or tell us about some of them?
Yeah, actually this year happens to be my 10th year. So it's a very special milestone for me.
What's your skincare?
My skincare.
Yeah,
What's
we're
your
doing tense
skincare?
here. Look at her. She's like, oh my
No,
gosh.
this is coming from
you are.
someone who looks so pretty and beautiful, right?
It's all the chocolate and the sweets.
Oh, wow. I think that goes for me too, because I'm a huge lover of chocolate and ice cream. So maybe that's working. for
Aren't
us.
these like all the things you're not supposed to eat? You're supposed to have good skin. Sorry, continue. Please go ahead.
No, shh, shh, shh. We're not talking about that.
But
So
10-year
tell us about-
milestone.
yeah, 10 years. So tell us about
Yeah.
some of the projects you worked on that people might know.
Actually, so over the 10 years, I've done many different types of musical works in my career, and I've been very, very lucky to be able to do tie-ups for, I think my first tie-up was for an NHK anime called Fibrain, and that's Now or Never was my debut sort of anime tie-up song. And that goes way back, and that's still one of my favorite songs. And I've also done animes like Batum, No Pain, No Game, Arpeggio of Blue Steel, Savior of Song. That one kind of is probably the most well-known out of all my songs. And a lot of other songs from different tie-ups as well. But I've also done like games as well and musical themed stories, and yeah, I'm still hoping to be able to do more in the future.
That's so impressive. You are living every otaku's dream of singing anime songs in Japan, right?
Wow.
And you are not born and raised in Japan, so what
Yeah.
brings you here?
Oh, music, really. I was born in New York, raised in Oregon, so that's on the west coast, and you can tell from my accent that I'm so totally not New York anymore. But yeah, at heart I am, of course. But, yeah, but at a very young age, I came about music, and just music was the most passionate thing for me. Like I never felt so much passion toward anything other than music, and so I was like, I've got to do this in the future. I've got to make this my career. And then I met anime music, which changed my sort of insight or feelings about music in general. And I felt that it was more entertainment based than a lot of the music that I grew up listening to.
Oh, so you say anime music can be different from normal Japanese music?
I do think so. And I grew up listening to a lot of Western music as well. So that was a huge eye opener for me. You know how like anime openings are so catchy. And then you have the opening animation, which goes so well with the song itself. And it just was so like exciting for me. And I was like, I want to sing these songs. And so I was like, but in order to sing these, I have to go to Japan and sort of like get to know my roots again, because I'm Japanese. I love Japan, and I don't know how, but miraculously I was able to come to Japan in my early teens.
Your early teens?
In my early teens.
Oh, that's young.
Yeah, and I didn't immediately make a debut, of course. I had to go through a lot of studying about music. I did a lot of auditions. I did internet singing. Like, I uploaded my cover songs onto Nico Nico Doga on YouTube.
Nico Doga.
Nico Doga, right? Yeah, so that was my huge start. And then I met my director, and he signed me and a major contract, and I miraculously released a debut album, single, and then from there it was just a rush of music for me.
I think it was not a miracle. I think you're pretty hardworking
worked
to get
pretty
there. In
freaking
Japan,
hard,
no miracles happen. It's your hard work.
I'm
there
sure
as well.
you know that, but
But you decided you were going to pick yourself up and move yourself to Japan. It was not like someone came and picked you up and said you'll. Like, it wasn't your family moving to Japan or something?
it was the exact opposite. I dragged my parents to Japan.
Really?
I said, if you don't take me to Japan, then you know what's gonna happen.
My God, if I'd said that to my parents, I would have been slapped to the other side of the country.
I think, like, in my entire life, the biggest tantrum that I made was that moment when I said, Mom, I am just gonna go to Japan or else my life's over. And then I had a huge tantrum. And I was like, my life's gonna end if I don't go to Japan. And so we sold the house. And
Oh my
then-
God!
What?
Stop, this was at what age?
It was like middle school.
So like what, 12, 13?
I think so, somewhere around there.
Oh my gosh! If I
Sure, my life's over unless I get a Lamborghini!
to Japan,
work for
that
me.
worked.
But it worked, but it wasn't by calculation. It was really like genuine like emotion for me.
Pure
I
emotion,
really
sure.
did feel that my life would be over and that I wouldn't have a future if I didn't pursue singing as a career.
Wow,
And
It's like
man.
your calling.
Yeah, and since then I've never even once imagined myself doing anything else. I've never wanted to do anything else. Of course, I've done like, part-time jobs and stuff, but it was all like for this
For the
sole
sake of
purpose.
music.
Yeah.
Wow, I must.
Sorry.
I'm just.
Please.
I admired this passion of saying like I'm gonna put all my eggs in one basket. I'm gonna try and get my whole family to move. This is my dream. I'm gonna make it happen. That's what I'm saying. It's not a miracle that you hear. It's hard work and a bit of a tantrum maybe.
Yeah, we all need that, right? Did you have a tantrum, Penny?
Tantrum? I don't think it was a tantrum though. Like
I can't imagine Brandon having a tantrum. He's always like so totally logical and
usually,
cool about
right?
it.
yeah?
Usually really flat.
You probably have some German ancestry in you somewhere there then.
Yes, that's right. On my father's side, actually.
Alrighty, I could tell that
Yeah.
there's the German rationality. I like it very much. Bring it on.
Maybe our
Exactly.
hearts were resonating a little bit when we came into the room, right? No, for me it wasn't a tantrum. Like, are we going on to me?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I've had enough of my history.
No, like, I think for all of us that finally, we got this idea in our heads that we wanted to be somewhere else, that we were interested in other countries or other cultures or other languages. And then we finally, at some point made that decision, and something was there to push us to make that decision. In Nano's case, it was feeling that music is the core of your essence and what you want to do going forward, right? For me, wasn't a tantrum. I was interested in Japanese culture, like vaguely, I guess, obliquely from a young age. Like when I was back at home in the United States, like in elementary school, middle school, on Cartoon Network and other, like channels in the US, they had some Japanese anime. So it was like Dragon Ball and other things like that. And I think at the time, like I didn't know that it was Japanese anime. It was just some cartoon that was on TV that I was watching, right? But I think slowly I started to figure out that this was from Japan. Okay, cool, it's from Japan, no big deal, right? When I got into high school, this is dating myself a little bit, Netflix was still doing like their rental games by mail service.
Oh, that's interesting. Really? That's how Netflix started.
Right, way back in the day.
Right.
And you could do video game rentals through Netflix, and they would send you the CD in the mail, just like they would send you a DVD in the mail. So I, was getting like game subscriptions and stuff for the mail. One of the games that happened to come through was a game called Samurai Warriors, or in Japanese, Sengoku Musou.
Ah, right.
And I don't know why. Like, oh, it looks interesting. Oh, it's related to Japan. Maybe I'll be interested in it. So I was playing it, and it was a great game. I enjoyed it. Thank you, Koei. I appreciate it at the time. But then there was one day where I changed the settings for whatever reason from English into Japanese. And it's important that this was the first Sengoku Musou game, Samurai Warriors game, because the later ones, they removed the Japanese audio from some of them.
Oh.
I think on Steam now.
Damn,
Obviously, you
I
can
hate
get
when
the
they do
Japanese
that.
audio on Steam. But when they were worried about, the size of the data you can put in a CD, then, at the time, they started removing the Japanese audio. But the first one still had it. And so I changed the audio into Japanese one day, and a certain character that I really, really liked, his name is Akechi Mitsuhide, and his voice came through the speakers. And I heard this voice, this Japanese voice actor's voice coming out of the speakers. And everything was different for me after that point.
Wow.
I liked anime. I liked, watching Japanese anime. I liked watching, cartoons and animation growing up. But this was the first time that it really hit me that this was a career, that someone was behind this person. Someone made this their profession to make this character come to life, right? And the voice of Akechi Mitsuhide is Midorikawa Hikaru. He's a very famous male voice actor. And after that point, I said, well, I have to study Japanese, and I have to go to Japan, and I have to find some way to be a part of this thing.
So your calling
right.
was more towards voice acting.
That was the entrance to it. And I went to university, Japanese major, Japanese graduation thesis, did all of that, came to Japan back in 2011. It was a week and a half after the earthquake. So
Oh, wow.
Oh,
we don't talk
dear.
about tantrums, but we can talk about the
Oh, wow.
at least the explanations that had to be made to the family that you were going to this place, right? But my family, eventually was okay with it, came over in 2011, and did a whole bunch of English teaching, as you can imagine, for a long time, but finally had the opportunity in about 2018, I guess it was, through a really long story. Basically, a friend of mine worked at a radio station, voice actor worked at a radio station. You like voice actors, come to the radio station, please be on their show. And through that one radio appearance with that voice actor, I made the connections with HoriPro,
Wow.
called them up one day and said, hey, I want a job. Got the interview, got the job, and suddenly, someone who was drawn to Japan by voice actors was managing one.
Oh.
And I think that's an interesting story. I think we all have stories like that. Something that draws us to come here, and then we finally achieve that. So that's why I'm hoping in the next section of this we can kind of hear a little bit more about from you guys as well. What drew you here? What brought you here?
You two are furnaces of ambition and dedication. Both of you.
I hope so. I hope
Amazing.
so.
So you would have started learning Japanese in high school then, yeah?
So I started learning on my own. Like I was probably like 15 or 16 when that voice came into my ear from that game, right? And I said I have to study. So I bought books, studied on my own, went to university, studied Japanese university, and came
He
straight
knows
here.
a lot more Japanese than I do.
Really?
So you say that,
Honestly,
right? You say that.
Because I am Japanese in my roots, of
spoke
course,
right,
and
right.
I speak it on a daily basis. But I didn't necessarily study in
Sure,
America,
right.
and so my knowledge of Japanese is more like something I learned as I lived, and from my parents.
Right.
And so it's probably not as very, very detailed or very, very like
Academic.
in a way. So he's a lot better in that.
But then
sense.
I get told that I'm more academic than I should be sometimes, though.
Very- I agree.
No, people anybody that listens to me talk about it, because the cabinets in my brain that I can pull words out of are all of that very academic history stuff and that kind of stuff that I
But that's
studied.
your personality.
Is it?
Yeah, he's a very logical person,
Okay.
as you can tell.
That's fantastic.
It's the German roots.
Listen,
Yeah, it is.
without you logically minded people, none of this would be happening. This building would be falling down, would be
Sure.
rolling
sure.
around to the sand.
Okay. Let me ask you. This is a very difficult question. And
Okay,
each one
bring
would
it
be
on.
cool if you could answer this. How to make it in Japan? What did you put in to get out where you are now?
Do you want to go first?
Sure. I think the first thing I always tell people when I get questions, DMs on Twitter, for example, how did you make it in Japan, or how did you get to do what you're doing right now? And I think there's two things. The first one is a very pro forma thing. You have to learn Japanese. I'm sorry.
Yep. Yes, you do.
150%.
you
Yes.
do.
I know that there are many influencers and many people in Japan that do make it who don't have a high level of Japanese language ability. And maybe they have something that I certainly don't. They have that talent spark that really draws people to them, high charisma and so on. But on the back end of that, if you can't handle the business level Japanese, or you can't make your opinions or make your motivations known to the Japanese producers and executives and people around you, you're always going to be limited to the people that you can charm, the people that want to support you because it's you. And that's only about half of what we do in the entertainment industry. The other half of it is doing the sales work and doing the relationship building and so on to get opportunities that we wouldn't necessarily have, to convince people to give us those opportunities. That's where the Japanese language ability comes in. You really do need to study it. You really do need at least a base level of it to be able to be successful, I think.
So you're going into meetings, you're going into networking events,
Sure.
you're hitting up the kegel,
Right.
you're sending emails with the kanji, all
Yep,
of that.
of course. No,
I'm not doing those things. Come on.
Well, no, you have a manager to handle it for you, right?
Yes,
So-
I thank you, manager. Let's hear it for the managers. Good job, the managers.
So, I mean, I could talk all day about being a manager. I talk about it on our podcast all the time, but that's the first part of it, I think, to have that support or be able to do it yourself, right?
And now, how did you guys get hooked up?
Sure.
Well, we started off like we said before, in the same management. He was on the managing side, and I was on the artist side. And it's Horipuro is a big company, but also it's very close, like a family, and everyone in the music portion of it quite know each other very well.
Well, and especially for people like us.
Yeah,
where-
because it's very rare for someone who
Sure.
can actually, not just speak English, but have, English roots and
Right.
American roots and stuff. And so I always knew that he was there. We
Yep.
didn't directly work together necessarily, but I was always I want to get to know him. It's really nice just to have someone you can speak English to
Actually,
in the
the
company.
feeling was very mutual
So
at the time. It definitely
I
was.
invited him to have a meeting with me once,
Yep.
and I had a meeting with him, and I said, it'd be really cool if we could start something together that could cater to the global fans, and we could talk about Japanese entertainment and the real reality of it,
Right.
and share the wonders of it as well as maybe the hardships of it, and that's exactly what we're doing on our podcast.
That's awesome, man. Yo, by the way, everybody, go and check out their podcast, Nano to the World. I was listening to episodes of your podcast. Yo, the one you did about behind the scenes at live music shows.
Sure.
You got to go and do introductions and all of that.
Yeah.
I was listening to that going, oh, my people. Finally,
Exactly.
someone else.
Exactly.
Exactly what you guys said. Exactly what you said before the show. You just want to be there and in your own head
Of course.
and thinking about what you're going to do on the show. What you said about the most important thing is making sure the artist is 100%. They can go and do what they've got
yeah.
to do. And then all of this networking that you
Oh, yeah.
do. I was listening and I was like, oh my God, this is
That makes us so happy.
my experience 100%.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna try and run one more time answer the question. What to make it in Japan? So there's a lot of detail on your podcast. Very very simply said, bring the Japanese skills. Now, what else do we bring?
I get the first part. Bring your Japanese skills. What would you add to it?
I think just like the diligence, the never give up spirit, to be honest, because Japan is a wonderful place. It's very kind. The people are wonderful. The community is safe. It's all nice. But at the same time, I think Japanese people are very hard workers, and they expect you to be very, very hardworking when you want to make it in Japan. And I think, since I was born in the U.S., I'm pretty laid back, and I'm a pretty all's well kind of person. So when I came to Japan, a lot of things were very, very culture shocking to me. Like, how you have to apologize after everything, or you have to be very humble, or all these things. And so not just about those things, but you have to respect the culture as well. And that kind of connects with what Brendan said as well. But, know your Japanese culture, respect that Japanese culture. But it's a very fine line, because I went through a very hard stage in my life where, because I look Japanese as well, I tried to be too Japanese, and I lost a lot of my true self about, my roots in America. I kind of wanted to erase all that and just wanted to melt into Japan. And I became too Japanese. And then that really was a stress on me, and that affected my music career as well.
Too Japanese.
Too Japanese. And so, I mean, that kind of erased my whole identity. Like, there was no reason for me to be me, because I was just trying to be someone else. And that in the music industry is not something that people want.
I mean, that's the opposite of the artist's role, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. So it took me very, very many years to be able to overcome that sort of wall within myself. But after nearly 10 years, I finally feel like I am a good balance of who I was born as and who I also evolved into as a musician over the years in Japan.
That's fantastic. That's lovely.
So respect yourself, but also respect the environment that you are in is my advice when you want to make it in Japan.
That's a lovely advice. But let me ask you a question, young lady. I was hitting up your YouTube, and I was looking through your music videos. The song, I'm sorry, off the top of my head, I can't remember the name of the song. The song you sung with the dude from Spy Air.
Spy Air?
You were singing on a frickin', Yeah. You shot this music video on a Navy battleship. How did you, just as someone who knows what goes into producing a music video,
Savior
how did you get yourself onto a Navy frigate? I was like, did they go to Okinawa? Did they bribe someone? What happened?
Okay, this is a real miracle, even for myself. It's not every artist who gets a chance to do this. Not even like a very famous artist can do this. And this is only possible because I miraculously had a wonderful fan who had a father who worked in the Navy.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes. And so that sort of connected us to that. And so we were able to shoot on the ship.
Yes.
But it's usually off limits at all.
Of course.
It's a completely, like, not a museum. It's like a ship that was actually doing work.
It's
So we had to wait until, like, the morning was over. And then we'd carry our cameras onto the ship, shoot for 2 hours, and then move because they had to use the ship again.
Wow.
And then we had to cut out parts that were not allowed to show on camera.
Of course, lots of that.
So it was amazing.
That would have been crazy. May I ask, was that in Okinawa? Was that in Yokohama?
Oh no, that was Yokohama.
It was Yokohama. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I saw that and I was like, wait, just a second now. What's going on? I was amazed.
Yeah,
Your next music video, you're gonna be in like an F-18 or something.
Just Top Gun.
You got the
Top Gun
mask
Maverick,
already. You look
yeah.
like Tom Cruise.
Yeah,
Exactly,
I'm ready. But it was. Let me tell you, it's not every day you can sing in front of a cannon. Like, and like,
True
you're leaning on cannon.
Like
and
a
you're
real
singing.
one as well.
Exactly. So
That is so amazing. You guys are full of stories. We have plenty more stories. How many more minutes remain in this podcast episode right now? This extravaganza, this storytelling bonanza. 7!
We have
Oh, that's
7
more than I
whole
expected.
minutes?
I thought we were down to 3. Think of something.
Well, I was going to ask what gave
That was all I
your-
threw you under the bus. I'm so sorry. That was awful. I'm so sorry.
What gave your popularity or your career a boost? What was like a moment that we like, okay, boom. Singing on a ship, or what could it be?
What do you think? Is it the ship or is it?
I think like just challenging myself to a lot of new things. Like, for example, that collaboration I did also was the first collaboration I had done. And it opened up a lot of doors, helped me to, learn about new types of music, singing, all these things. And then that song really sort of shot off my career as like a fast rock and roller singing person, and since then, all my songs have been like BPM 200 and like racing, like just out of space and stuff. And so like, thanks to that song, all my concerts are like a battle between life and death for me on stage because I'm always out of breath when
I understand that feeling.
Yeah, so.
You were always a rocker, even before you listened to Japanese music and everything. Yeah, cool.
I love rock and roll.
Who are some of the bands you grew up listening to?
I loved like British rock, emo rock.
Okay.
I listened to a lot of Green Day, Avril Lavigne,
All right.
Fall Out Boy, My Chemical Romance.
Awesome.
And a lot of like even like the Beatles. I love the Beatles as well, just rock and roller in general. And then also I did go through a stage where I listened to anything on the radio. So I'm a mix of a lot of things.
What was the anime song that changed you, that made you go into wanting to become an anime singer? Not just a singer, but an anime singer.
Not particularly just one song, but it was Detective Konam. Those rock and roll songs really changed my sort of opinion about like J-rock, J-pop in general, and that they could be used in anime, because until then, anime songs tended to be a little bit more like typical, anime songs. They had the title in there, or they were very poppy or catchy, but then they had a lot of rock and roll songs and not necessarily anime artists in general. So I was like, this could be interesting. I want to try this.
Bangarang.
All right. So that was your career boost, was trying new things and finding your style in a way. What gave your career a boost?
No, that's kind of why I passed it over to Nano first to really think about, like, what do I even have a career to boost is my first question.
Well, is it a lot of like networking?
You own this building. I think we can all agree that you definitely have a career.
I think there have been some advantages to being a very recognizable face within the industry, and there have been some instances. I've been very grateful for those instances where you go into a business situation, or you introduce yourself, and they say, "Yeah, I know who you are. I know, I've heard of you from this person," and it does help. I think maybe the word is authenticity. I think when you go in and you say, "Hey, I want to take this artist overseas," or "I want to, find a way to promote this person overseas," or "I want to, ensure that the fans overseas get the opportunity to hear from this artist in English." Directly to them, rather than having to go through, translations and things like that. And, who would you trust going in there? It's obviously going to be the guy who speaks Japanese fluently, but is from a U.S., Western overseas background. Again, with the story that I have, that I brought, how I got into the industry and so on. I think authenticity is a big part of it. And definitely the recognizability of being the only person, but I also think, and we've talked about this on the podcast as well, that there's a lot of expectations that are put on that person as well. And I don't know that I've been able to meet up all of those yet to really get the big boosts so far. I'm still looking for that, I think.
Oh, okay.
Seems like it's going quite well.
I appreciate
Rather
it.
well.
You're doing quite well, yeah.
Just slightly. But Brandon, you also worked in music artist management.
Yes, that's correct.
So what's your musical tastes?
Musical taste, 80s.
80s?
100% the 80s.
I love the
Really?
80s.
Take on me?
Take on me, No, like, I basically, my mother and she would drive me to school in the mornings, right? And she would always have the 80s station on in the car. And so I was always surrounded by that. I'm going to say that the soundtrack to Grand Theft Auto Vice City had a lot to do with it as well.
Oh, wow.
Because
Really?
it's all 80s music. It was about, 8, 9 CDs of 80s music, and I loved it. That's how I got into it. But yeah, Michael Jackson definitely. Judas Priest definitely.
Oh, yeah.
Who else could I think of off the top of my head? Just anything 80s. Like if it's any of the top
Duran Duran.
hundreds. Sure, exactly. Any of the top hundreds from the 80s I like. I don't listen to it too much, but like EDM as well. I'll use it in the background when I'm doing work and stuff like that, but I probably couldn't tell you like this artist or that a person.
So did you specifically, when it came time to manage musical artists, did you
Sure.
specifically say, I want to manage like 80s style?
So
artists?
you would think so, right? In the company that I was working for, Horty Pro International, it's all anisong kind of artists
Okay.
or like voice actors, right?
Right.
And so in that case, it's people who are doing that kind of like idol, voice actor, kind of poppy kind of music, right? But at least the people that I was working with most closely, they all had different genres that they were working with. And so it was interesting to see a range of different music for each of them.
It's amazing, man. I reckon the time is probably looking pretty giddy. This is some amazing conversation.
1 or 2 minutes?
We're
Okay.
going to keep it up on episode 2 of Cat with Beard, featuring Nano to the world and Brandon. Cathy Cat, tell the people the things.
Yes, so episode 2, we're going to still have these wonderful guests here, but actually we're going to shift this conversation, part 2 of this conversation, over to your podcast,
Yep.
Nano
We'll take the
to
baton.
the World. So there's going to be a part 2 of this style, and then another one later on, again here on Cat with Beard.
Well, I
Guys-
messed that up.
Yeah.
You got it.
We're getting
No
really
problem.
confused now, so you got to get pretty much 4 different podcasts. Which
Yep.
is
Yeah.
four
It's
different-
amazing. This
Four
is
different
Appreciate it.
tastes, so we got to get that.
a bonanza of content.
Yes, and on
Where's your podcast? Where's your social media? Where's your internet?
Yeah, where can people
Take
find the
the
podcast?
honors.
So
Brandon
I always
does
do it at
this.
the end of ours.
Yeah.
So, but I can't say thank you very much for listening and coming to the end of this episode of Nano to the World. Thank
I'll
you
just
very
say it
much for
anyway.
listening and come to the end of this episode of Cat with Beer with Japan.
Yes!
From Japan.
From Japan.
You can find us, Nano and I, obviously on Twitter. You can search for Nano to the World, NTTW official on Twitter. You can also follow us on Instagram. You can search for us on there as well. We put like all the behind the scenes kind of photos from our podcast up on Instagram. And yeah, the hashtag for the program is nano_world. So if you want to go ahead and send any like comments or questions that you might have to the hashtag, we'll check it out on there. And I usually drop a little heart on each of the ones that I read so people
Yeah,
can
and
see
the
it.
second half of this episode will be on Nano to the World. And on Nano to the World, we will be taking the baton, turning the tables around, and interviewing these wonderful people.
Absolutely. Turn the tables.
Cat with Beard from Japan
Yes.
fans. I know you already know a lot about these two, but maybe we might be able to dig up
There's
on
Yeah, yeah,
your
yeah, yeah.
some
secret.
dirt. Some gossip for you.
So make sure to check us out for the
Yep.
second half.
All right, and
Alright.
Cat the Cat, people want to email us. Where do they do that?
The nippon@joqr.net. But also, guys, don't forget we have our official YouTube channel. You can actually see these beautiful faces that are sitting here right
Yes.
now. And so there is the full podcast out there. So please check us out there as well. Follow, subscribe, like, all the things. And don't forget, if you're listening to this on a podcast, please rank this podcast 5 stars or,
5
or 15,
stars!
whatever
All
the
5
highest
of them.
is.
What's Cat the Cat's social media?
Cathy Cat _TV. You can find me on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, anywhere. I'm having a lot of fun. And Ladybeard.
Ladybeard _Japan, and check out my pop group Babybeard _Japan on the internet. That's all we have time for today on Cat with Beard. We'll see you soon on Nano to the World. Cat with Beard! Goodbye!
I missed my timing there.
It's alright, try it again. Cat with Beard! Goodbye!